This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for June 22nd, 3 p.m. Here's the water vapor loop of the Western Atlantic Basin, and you can see that things are pretty quiet in the Atlantic, and we have wind shear. If you can show you here on this map, we have an upper level low near the Bahamas, and that's causing a lot of wind shear all through the Caribbean Sea and out into the Atlantic. I have some other graphics to show you in just a minute to tell you why things are so slow in the Atlantic right now, but in this part of the basin, this is the main reason, is wind shear. Now, we have an area of disturbed weather down near Panama and Colombia down here that we're going to have to keep an eye on, and this could eventually develop and head toward the Central American coastline and then eventually into the Gulf of Mexico. I'll show you some graphics on that as well. But not much going on out there if we put this in motion once again. A lot of swirls. We have a storm that recently made landfall in Mexico out here in the Pacific, but things are quiet in the Atlantic at this time. All right, let's take a look at our first image. This is from the National Weather Service going out 72 hours. This is today's forecast. And you can see on this map that we have tropical wave that in about 72 hours that's going to be right in this position somewhere over in here near Nicaragua, Honduras. And we have a monsoon trough that extends all the way through South America and into the East Pacific, kind of like this, but a branch of the disturbed weather off of this monsoon trough is going to eventually move off to the northwest and make it into the Gulf of Mexico, which should make things pretty interesting going into next week sometime. We're talking about 4 or 5 days from now where we could see something developing out here in the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll keep an eye on that, but right now it looks like all indications are whatever does develop will remain weak and head into the Gulf in a fashion similar to this. In fact, the GFS wants to develop it and then take it kind of towards South Texas over here in northern Mexico like this. The other models keep it much further south, the Canadian, the European model, and the North American mesoscale model. I'll keep it down low here in the Bay of Campeche and into Mexico as a very weak system, but none of these really crank it up very much. Again, tropical storm status in the Gulf of Mexico and then eventually towards Mexico. So things could change over the next few days. We'll keep an eye on all these models, but right now that looks like that's what's going to happen going into next week. Now here are the pressure, sea level pressures in the entire Atlantic Basin going out 48 hours. I know there's a lot of colors on the map here, but let me simplify this for you. Any areas out here, and generally the light green into the yellow areas, are all high pressure, which is not favorable for development of tropical systems. And in fact, the areas, tropical systems like lower pressures to get developed, and the only low pressures we can find are down here in the very southern Caribbean Sea, and that's why we're expecting, and for some of the several models are indicating something will try to get developed out of here and head into the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll be watching this. Again, I travels along that monsoon trough down here. But anything up in here, you can pretty much forget about it because there's not only wind shear out here, but high pressures out here that do not allow significant development. And there also is a little bit of dry air out in here off the coast of Africa. Of course, it's a little too early to be looking out towards Africa. All right, here's the vorticity, 850 millibar vorticity chart, and we have some rotation down here again near Panama, Costa Rica. We'll watch this closely as it moves off to the northwest over the next several days. It'll be interacting with land, but it probably won't have much of a chance to develop into anything until it either gets in the Bay of Campeche or in the Gulf of Mexico here, away from any land masses. So we'll be watching for that. Here's the wind shear analysis going out 48 hours from now. And again, you can see any areas that you have blue, greens are unfavorable for development. We're having 15 to 20 knots of shear, even in 48 hours from now, just north of Honduras, heading towards Jamaica, Cayman Islands, unfavorable conditions. But the only area that is favorable is down here right over land in Central America. So again, that wave off the monsoon trough should move through Central America, and then once it gets in the Gulf of Mexico in about 4 or 5 days, things might be a little more favorable for development at that time. Now, I always like to show this map in the tropical update videos. Let me zoom in on this so you can really get a good idea of what I'm talking about here. I like to show this map occasionally at the beginning of the hurricane season and as the hurricane season gets more active. Because if you go back to 2009 on this map here, I know there's a lot of colors to see, but let me use the red pen here and show you the Atlantic Basin, which is right over here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. This area is generally lower pressures right now in the eastern Atlantic and in fact northeast of the Antilles. It's much lower pressures than normal, even though there is a high pressure ridge out in the Atlantic, but we're talking surface pressures here are a little bit lower than they would normally be at this time of the year. In fact, if you look at the entire Atlantic Basin, all the blue areas and pink and magenta colors are all below normal sea surface temperatures, sea level pressures, and that would mean something at the height of the hurricane season. When you have systems coming into the Atlantic, the lower the pressures are, the larger the systems are, the more powerful they are. So we're going to be watching for that. The only area that's showing in neutral right now is right off the coast of North Carolina all the way down to the Bahamas, where the pressures are about the same as what they normally are at this time of the year. But look at the Pacific out here, especially the East Pacific, out near Hawaii and all over the Pacific. Not a whole lot of drop in pressures out here. These are above normal pressures out in the Pacific, so we may not see as much development around this time of the year in the Pacific because of the pressures being higher than what they would normally be. So we'll keep track of this map as well. This is from the Operational Data Center from NOAA, and this is on the Jim's Predictions for the Weeks page. Now, as I mentioned on the Jim's Predictions for the Week page, I'm going to cut back on my weekly predictions due to my work schedule. I was releasing those every Monday to see how I could compete with the models going out 5 or 6 days. I did a pretty good job over the last 7 or 8 years, batting about 65 to 70%. That's an objective grading based on whether I thought something was going to develop or not, or which direction a storm was going to go, going against model data. So I did a pretty good job with that, but due to my schedule and just timing of everything, usually it's on a Monday I release those. It just wasn't meant to be for this hurricane season or maybe for the future altogether. But I'll try to give more updates on these tropical update videos, and archive subscribers may get an additional email or two, maybe every week or two, with detailed analysis on what's going on in the tropics, which I think you'll enjoy from my perspective on what's happening out there. And that'll be only for the archive subscribers that are on the mailing list. Well, that's it for now. Tropics are quiet. We'll keep an eye on that area down in the Caribbean for next week going into the Gulf of Mexico. That's it for now. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.